Hi everyone, my name is James Orme, editor of Techerati.com, and today I'm going to be speaking with Marc Garner, UK Vice President of Schneider Electric's Secure Power Division, who has just left the stage, at least virtually, at Data Center Dynamics Europe. Hi Marc, how are you doing?
I'm very well, James. How about yourself?
Yeah, good, very good, thanks. How did you enjoy the event today? How are you enjoying the event so far?
It's very good. It's a different experience presenting virtually than being on a stage. So it's one to get used to, I think.
Yeah, well, I think everyone's slowly getting used to the whole virtual events thing, and things have definitely improved over the last few months. So, yeah, it's an exciting time when you're in the events industry.
Yes.
You're fresh from your talk today on efficiency and sustainability efforts in colocation, where you discussed research that Schneider Electric conducted in partnership with 451 Research. Now, sustainability is a huge topic, and there has never been more scrutiny on the environmental impact of data centers. Some estimates by 2025, as you mentioned in your talk, IT are responsible for 8.5% of global electricity usage. Now, why did you and Schneider Electric decide to take a sort of more narrow, specific look at the sustainability journey of multi-tenant data centers?
It's a really interesting question because you can broaden this out into IT and IT more holistically. Start to look at telco and various other areas, and it starts to bring in another magnitude of data and growth in segments which we're maybe not as focused in, but not as easy to access data and the user client base as multi-tenant data centers. So it made sense to focus in this area to start off with. You have to start somewhere, and I've heard the phrase many a time, don't eat the elephant, take the small chunks, and this is really looking at how can we focus on the small chunks, which is a big part of the pie, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. And in your talk, you mentioned that unless colocation charts a course to sustainability, there exists some threat to their long-term survivability. Now, what do you mean by this?
It's so I guess my question to the industry at the moment and more broadly is sustainability at the same level as some of the other priorities for a multi-tenant data center? So we know resiliency is a key factor in data center design, build, operation. It's one of the factors that drives their customers to the co-locator. How do we start to promote sustainability as a topic, as a requirement at that same level of resiliency? It's probably a challenge to get there because it's one of the things that drives the market, but we need to get it into a boardroom discussion and more prevalent in terms of that boardroom discussion. How do we add cadence to our activity as industry professionals? And I mentioned it within the talk that we've targeted the multi-tenant data center community, but the supply chain and us as suppliers of products and systems into that supply chain, as services into that supply chain, we have a huge role to play in this. There's an embedded carbon footprint that comes with everything that we do, and we need to move as an industry towards this rather than as an individual contributor or business contributing to it.
So yeah, as everyone says, sustainability is everybody's responsibility, as you're saying. Just on that point, do you think tenants have a role to play in moving this forward as well?
Absolutely. It's the requirements to drive this forward. I touched on a point in there that when we talk about our value chain, Schneider Electric as a business, we're trying to drive our suppliers now to become more energy efficient, hit this carbon neutrality in their production of equipment that we subsequently use. Ultimately, it's going to be driven from a top-down approach, and really those tenants, the people that are going to be taking space in the data centres, they're the ones that are going to drive the behavioural change and the activity change. There's a stat from the 451 research which I touched on, that 97% of all the tenants are looking for contractual agreements that drive sustainability, but only 43% of data centres are strategically trying to move in that direction at the moment. So we have that gap in terms of what's required from the tenants and what we're able to deliver at this point.
No, fascinating. So it seems to reflect what we're seeing sort of, I guess, in the consumer space of what consumers are demanding from the brands that they work with. The same applies here. Yeah,
absolutely. Sustainability is a fascinating topic because you can branch off in so many different directions with it. We're talking here around the carbon output, the energy efficiency of buildings and everything, but it can feed into so many different facets in terms of people, the skills shortage. There's a couple of a presentation from CBRE just before mine. I know we're talking around some of these topics, but ultimately this starts to feed into sustainability as well.
Now, in 2020, there's a number of the cloud providers, switching focus just a little bit, have made sustainability a core pillar of their operations. There already was a core pillar of operations, but they, Microsoft and Google and some others redoubled their commitments in 2020 with some ambitious pledges. How far behind would you say the sort of co-location, multi-tenant data center community? How far behind are they from the cloud providers in terms of their sustainability commitments?
I think this is really difficult to say, James, because we can't be unfair on the data center community. Really, the strides that we've made as an industry in the last 10 years have been fantastic. You can. I don't really like talking about PUE because it's a very specific topic that kind of people can will focus on. But if I just touch on that piece, then we're seeing PUE improvement on an average of anywhere up to kind of 50% improvement over the last 10 years. So there's huge strides that have already been put in place by the data center community. The one thing that I do see that when we and some of the research has shown around PUE, that it's started to plateau a little bit. So we're not seeing those strides, those significant improvements, and the challenge is now around that next step. So when you talk around some of the internet giants, there's huge conversations now around wind farms and self-owned wind farms to be able to drive their energy. These are the significant jumps now that need to be made to make those carbon neutral, to meet those carbon neutral commitments. I think we've driven efficiency to a level within our data centres. There's still more we can do, but is it going to be the significant jumps that we need as an industry?
No, it's a great point. I guess something that's often missed by people who are outside of the data centre sector, who sort of use sustainability to stick to beat the sector with, that don't appreciate the great advancements and progress that has been made previously. So yes, things that definitely need to be recognised as part of this conversation.
And I think, sorry, James, just to add, I think it's one of the things that as an industry we need to shout out a little bit more about, because I used a slide in the talk before that talked about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and the companies that have signed up from that. Our industry is quite noticeable from our absence in there, but the reality is, with everything we're doing, we should be very prevalent within that list.
No, absolutely. Moving on to the sort of next step, the next evolution, as you put it, let's get on to the how. So what can multi-tenant data centers do now? What steps can they take to make significant strides to boosting sustainability? And do you have an idea of the sorts of commitments that you would recommend based on the research that you conducted?
Some ideas, certainly. I think we as innovators within the industry, and Schneider Electric are certainly that, working with the supply chain, the partners, will certainly allow you to access new technologies and the supply chain to develop new technologies to support the improvements that are required around sustainability. Energy efficiency and being more efficient in our operations is still a key factor to be able to get there. So adopting new technologies like lithium ion, like liquid cooling, for example, will all show a significant benefit in terms of the efficiency in your operation of a data center. And then stepping past that, it is really going into this kind of partnership and leveraging the skills that sit within our industry at the moment, and really start to take the knowledge that sits within the industry, working closely in partnership with the data center community, and putting a plan in place that says, how do we go from your sustainability ambition today to a more adventurous, more ambitious sustainability ambition in the future, to a goal which seems too far away to really achieve, but we need a plan to be able to get there. And it's energy efficiency probably to start off with, because that's the easiest one to address. But then you start to look at other areas in terms of behavioural within the data centre. Can we move load between zones, as an example, to meet the requirements of when energy and the requirement around energy is going to be more expensive and more in demand. For example, in the UK, around Coronation Street time, when everyone's putting the kettle on and sitting down, is that a time where we maybe want to shift load into another zone? But these are things that I think the industry is already looking at and could be considered in the future.
Right. And are there any operators in particular that you want to draw attention to that can be thought of exemplars here, that are getting it right or approximating the right course? And what sorts of things have been achieved that are noticeable so far?
I can't really talk to the market as a whole, but I can certainly talk about Schneider Electric as a business and what we're doing and the commitments that we're making. So you'll have seen on there that there's a target within the business to become carbon neutral by 2025, and that's an improved ambition from where it was last year. And the idea really around it is then that how do we start to accelerate faster? So the adoption of electric vehicle technology across our fleet. How do we start to use the technology at our fingertips, the data that's at our fingertips, to get better insight into our operations and then improve those operations to become more efficient? A huge swathe of what we do around this is going to be data-led. And there's an irony in there, being the data industry that we work within, but the data is the thing that's going to drive this. We need those insights to be able to make a decision tree of where we go, what we do, and where we invest our activity, and whether the ambitions we then subsequently put in place on the back of that are achievable.
Right. And lastly, I mean, I was trying to complete this interview without mentioning coronavirus and the pandemic, but would you say that what's happened over the last 6 or 9 months or so, how has that affected or the place of sustainability on the sort of corporate agenda? Has it moved it up? Has it moved it down? Or is it more complicated than that?
It's certainly more complicated, and it's a difficult one to answer because we're in the middle of it at the moment. So I can't really say. What I would say, and I touched on it a little bit in terms of the Q&A with George. There's a question around it. I think the impact of sustainability and where it is today. There's lots more people who aren't travelling as much. There's people who are working from home more and not working in offices. The impact of this is still to roll out. You know, taking however many cars off the road that would be travelling 10, 50 miles a day back and to from work, to sitting on the computer and having these Teams discussions and calls. That's still to be understood as to whether there is a significant benefit that then comes from that in terms of the output in sustainability. I think there's still more to be investigated and found out in this space.
Well, it's going to be fascinating to see, you know, when these reports do take place and we have proper research, what the actual outcome has been, because I'm sure everyone in this sector will be really eager to identify the movements there. So where can people find this report, and where can people find more information on this if they want to dive deeper into the topic of sustainability and co-location, Mark?
So 451 research report, which we've commissioned, is available. We can provide you with a QR code for the article that you can maybe share in the video as well. It'll take you through to a direct link where you can download the report. And it gives you an insight really in terms of what the reality is versus the ambition, and where we're benchmarking versus the industry expectations.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much. So yes, we'll be posting that in the comments below this video if you're watching on LinkedIn. So thank you very much, Mark, and thank you very much everyone for tuning in today.
Thank you, James. Take care.